Now we'll be discussing about one of the important concept in React, and there comes in any front-end development again, right? So forms play a very crucial role in the entire front-end development because forms are the one point of source where you can collect data from the user. And in these days, data is treated as actually a gold, right? So data is the new gold or data is the new assets for any company. So collecting the data in an efficient way from the user is very important because users are very lazy nowadays. They don't want to fill long forms. And also when filling the forms, we need to validate, we need to check the user if the data is correct or not, or you need to verify if it is according to the norms of the company. So forms play really, I mean, 90% of websites, whatever information they are displaying, it is only because they want to collect some information about the user from the website, right? It can be any kind of form. It can be registration, it can be sign in, it can be checkout, it can be payment details form, or it can be location form, address filling form, anything. So as long as you are collecting the data from your user, then only your business can grow. So dealing with forms is very important in any front-end development, Angular or React or Vue.js or anything. But in React, forms are handled in a bit different way. So it doesn't go with the traditional way of handling the forms. React handles the form by binding it to the state in its own way. So today we'll discuss about how React deals with the forms and what are the advantages of it and how do you actually play around with the forms. We'll look into that. Okay. So first let's see controlled components. In React, we call each form element like maybe text field or maybe file upload field or maybe checkbox or maybe select whatnot like toggle button or anything we refer to them as controlled components. So when you hear the word controlled components, you might get, okay, are there any uncontrolled components also in React? Yes. So in React forms, mainly talking about forms, we have two types of components, that is controlled components and uncontrolled components. So it is mostly recommended for us to use control components. Okay, we'll see what is controlled components and what are uncontrolled components, but keep it in mind that it is a good practice to use controlled components as long as you are playing in the boundary of React. Okay, so what are controlled components? Controlled components are nothing but, so what is a form actually doing? We'll understand from the basics. Form takes the user input, collects the data, and aggregates the entire form data and sends it to the backend server. So for me as a component, what am I doing? I'm generating the data. It means as a form component, I'm having my own data, which we call as state. So forms in React are associated or are closely coupled with the state. So when you give ReactJS the control by binding your input element or your form elements to the React state, then those kind of components are called as controlled components. Let me repeat again. Controlled components are the components in which we bind the input fields or select fields or checkbox fields data. So whatever you are entering in the input field or you are selecting the option, whatever. So if you are binding that particular data to the React state, it means you are storing that particular state inside the React, or you are giving the control of that input element to the React, then those components are called as controlled components. So see, whenever there is a container, okay, and the text input. So whenever there is a change happening in the text input, you're emitting an event and you're storing the data in the React container, or we call it as React state. So what happens every time you make an event, it goes to the React state, updates the React state, and because the React state is updated, you give the updated value to the text input. So it means this text input is totally under the control of the ReactJS library, and it is a good practice to give the control to React for various reasons. Okay, so giving the input fields control to the React library, hence those components are called as controlled components. And there are also uncontrolled components where you don't give access to React library at any point. You deal with them as a normal HTML input or select or checkbox field. So you can use either of these, but it is highly recommended to use the controlled components. Now let's see what are the benefits when we use controlled components and when we are using uncontrolled components. Okay, so features. The controlled and uncontrolled components have two different features. I mean, these are the different features which we have, right? One-time value retrieval. So once the submit button is clicked, you can extract the entire value from both uncontrolled and controlled components. Let's say you entered your full name in one input box and you clicked on a button, so you can easily get the field, the data present inside the input field. Validating on submit, as I said, since you got all the data, all the data at one time, you can check the validations or you can put any kind of conditions. But what is that you are missing while you are in uncontrolled components? Since you don't have a fine-grained control on your input field, you cannot do like the Google or any form. If you are filling any form, as you are entering the form number itself or you are entering the username itself, immediately it says this username is taken, and you press the back button, and again the error message goes away, and again you type something, it says it doesn't align to the rules which we have assigned, right? Like it should have one capital letter, one small letter, etc., etc. So instant field validation is only possible when you are using the controlled components. Okay, so let me repeat again. Instant field validation means as the user is typing, because every change is now under the control of ReactJS. So giving the control to ReactJS gives the one of the best advantages, that instant validation. And when you're validating your form instantly, when you're validating each form instantly, you can have the control on the submit as well, right? Now, if any of the fields are not in the validation, you cannot let the user to submit. Like I'll give a simple example, terms and conditions. So you see in a lot of places that until you click that terms and conditions box checked up, then only the submit button opens up or it allows you to do something, or you can click on the button. Until then the button is disabled. How do you think this is possible? Whenever you click on the terms and conditions, what technically it means? It technically means that now the form is entirely validated with respect to each field, and now you are ready as a user, you are ready to submit. This is also a clearly a very good user experience, because as long as the submit button is disabled, user is clearly understood that okay, I have done something wrong, and he goes up and he can verify, okay, this is not according to the rules, this is not according to the rules. So conditional disabling of the button is now possible because you have an instant field validation. It means after you validate, you can check, okay, if all the fields are validated, then I'm totally fine with opening up the submit button. And similarly, dynamic input. So you can get the input data from somewhere. Let's say, for example, I have filled half of the form and my internet connection is lost, and maybe I have refreshed or my system is shut down, right? Since I have stored my form state in the React variables or in the React state, as that mechanism, I can put that React state or half filled form in the local storage of the browser. And when the user comes back, maybe after 1 or 2 days, I don't push him to fill the form again. Let's say user has to fill 20 fields, right? He filled 18 fields and suddenly something happened and the internet connection is lost. He clicked on the submit button, all the page gone, right? Next time the user comes in, if you are asking him to fill again 18 fields, it is very unlikely that he will fill, because he is lazy, he don't wants to fill. He'll go to some other competitor of our website, right? So when you have store your state inside the React forms, you can easily get back all of those data once the user comes back, and you can ask him only to fill the 19th and 20th input elements. So this is one of the biggest advantage, and I think it is a fairly good choice for you to use the controlled components. There are some use cases where you can use uncontrolled components, wherein you are opening your website in an iframe, or maybe you are giving control to somebody else like payment gateways does. So in very rare cases, you are forced to use uncontrolled components. But in most of the cases, controlled components are very good choice for you, right? So now let's see, how do you attach, say, to different input field elements, and how do you validate, and how do you control the state, and how you can fill the form and submit the form, etc. Right? So let's get into that.